Hi everybody, this is the Baseball Fight, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion. Your host, and we are back here at the Baseball Hut 2. Hope you like this video, of course, subscribe. Let's talk about more teams that are going to be selling, teams that are going to be buying, mostly selling in this video. First up, and we talked about them quite a bit, and that's the White Sox. They're going to be one of the more interesting teams to follow. I would expect that they will start trading players. This is from John Heyman. Not to be confused with Joel Sherman, and sometimes you get them confused. Headline, White Sox ready to sell at trade deadline while protecting 4 core players. I didn't know the White Sox had core players. Did you? I didn't know that. The White Sox are opening up for business as a seller according to sources. And they plan to seriously consider deals for all but 4 cornerstone players on their roster: Dylan Cease, Andrew Vaughn, Eloy Jimenez, and of course all-star Luis Robert Jr., who today complained that he hurt his calf during the home run derby. Hey folks, didn't that home run derby seem like it go on forever? And it was boom, 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 boom. I mean, didn't give these guys any kind of breath. Didn't give these guys any, chance to really, enjoy the home run ball, And not for nothing. Where did they dig up that guy that was throwing, batting practice to Pete Alonso? All position players in WAR and under a reasonable contract through 2027, including 2 option years at $20 million per. Free agents to be Lucas Giolito, Ronaldo Lopez, and Kenyon Middleton are the most likely to go in trade, with Giolito, who will bring the most, expected to draw interest from the Reds, Rangers, and others. Giolito's hometown Dodgers could also be a potential landing spot. Giolito has reestablished himself as the Chicago's ace this year, and in this market, even as a rental, should require a decent-sized haul. While the White Sox could possibly listen on their 4 cornerstone guys who would bring back even more, their clear intention is to keep them at this point. Sources did not say talented youngster Yohan Makata and Michael Kopech are in that same close to untouchable category, which is interesting. Very interesting. So we got the White Sox. The South Siders have a decent stash of talent, but with their stark underperformance this season, 38-54, it stands to reason that they may need to shake up things a little bit. Now, they shook up a lot of stuff last year because they had the ancient Tony La Russa as manager, and then they complained that Tony was the reason why the team was a 500 team. And it got so bad, Tony had to go home because they were making him sick. I guess when you're sitting watching that bad baseball, you're gonna get sick. You're gonna get sick. And now they brought in this other guy, and they're like, well, the team's bottomed out. It tells you that's what's important to have when you have like a real professional manager. It can make a difference between you being a average team to being a bad team. That's where the value is. Or you could be a very good team, and you may not be that good. You may be an okay team. 2 years ago, as you know, the White Sox under Tony in his first year in Chicago, having managed that 40 years ago, and that's not an exaggeration. He managed in 1982. He got them to win 93 games, and now it's a mess. The Kansas City Royals, we've not talked about them, I don't think, ever since the trade of Aroldis Chapman to the Rangers. It seems that they're going to start. There's a possibility that they could trade their all-star catcher, Salvador Perez, according to the BleacherReport.com. Salvador Perez could allow trade for chance to contend. Let's take a look at this. As an aging all-star on one of baseball's worst teams, Salvador Perez seems like an obvious trade candidate. But since he has the power to veto any trade away from the Royals, he has control over whether that's actually the case. Well, teams that avoid that catcher might want to start looking at the 33-year-old who earned his 8th all-star selection this season. Per Heyman, sources suggest he might consider waiving his veto rights for a chance at another ring. Perez, who tallied 15 homers and 40 RBIs before the break, wants to win. He needs to leave Kansas City. The Royals entered the break 19.5 games out of first place in the league's worst division, baseball's worst division, and one of only 2 teams, along with the A's, to have a sub-300 winning percentage. Holy God. Oh, my God. That's bad baseball right there. Why would you want to stay? Well, he likes Kansas City. Well, I'm sure Kansas City's a fine town. But doesn't he want to win again? He was the catcher when they beat the Mets back in 2015. Why would he want to stick around? Got a few more years left in the tank. He's still good. Still good. So we'll see what happens there. Now back to Chicago. But this is about the Chicago Cubs. MLB trade rumors. Headline: the Cubs hit a jackpot in minor league free agency. Now what? Since the Cubs signing of Craig Kimbrell left them feeling burned for the first 2 seasons of the contract, ownership in the front office have eschewed spending on the bullpen. I would mention that when you want to build a bullpen, the best thing you can do is do it through your organization. Do it through guys that you know that may not be a starter, but has good stuff, that has good fastball, has a good all-speed pitch, and develop him as a reliever. That's really where the best relievers come from. There's very few people that are able to develop, say, a Dennis Eckersley in the majors. I just use him as an example, or John Smoltz when he was going back and forth between starting and relieving. The best way to develop a bullpen is basically do it through your farm system. But here we go with the Cubs. They have some guy that has pitched really well on a minor league contract. That is Mark Leiter Jr., the son of Mark Leiter and the nephew of Al Leiter, and the cousin of Jack Leiter, who is a prospect with the Texas Rangers. Mark Leiter has been nothing short of a godsend at Wrigley Field. A 22-round pick by the Phillies back in 2013, Leiter comes from a prolific baseball family. His father, Mark Sr., enjoyed an 11-year big league career. His uncle, Al, is a 2-time All-Star and 2-time World Series champion who pitched in 19 Major League seasons. Was just recently put in the Mets Hall of Fame. He was a great big game pitcher, Al. He pitched hard. He was gritty, gutty, got every ounce of talent out of him, and he was a very talented pitcher coming up to the minor leagues with the Yankees. Leiter Jr.'s cousin, Jack, was the number 2 overall pick in the 2021 draft. Just 2 years ago, Leiter Jr. looked to be a footnote in the Leiter family baseball lineage. He didn't pitch in the majors from 2019 to 2021, despite solid numbers with the Tigers' upper minor affiliates in 21. When he quietly joined the Cubs on a minor league deal during MLB's lockout, minor league free agency for players who didn't finish the prior season on the 40-man roster of MLB injured list, still continued during the stoppage. Few thought much of it. Leiter looked like minor league depth, and little more than that. Perhaps that was how the Cubs saw things too. He didn't break camp with the team in 22 and was only summoned to the big leagues as a spot starter in mid-April. He started 3 games for the Cubs, yielding 9 runs in 9 1/3 innings, and was optioned back to Iowa. Over the next couple months, he was optioned back and forth a few different times, eventually moving into a full-time bullpen role. For much of the season, Leiter was a nondescript swingman on a non-contending Cubs club. Trades of Scott Efros, David Robertson, Chris Martin, and Michael Givens. That was a bad Mets trade, by the way. However, opened enough space in the bullpen for the Cubs to call Leiter back to the big leagues and stick him in the bullpen for good. The results were excellent. Although he carried a 5.35 ERA until last year's All-Star break, he was summoned to the majors on July 30th and dominated the season's final 2 months with a 2.17 ERA. That's pretty good. Even with that big finish to the season, however, Leiter didn't stick on the Cubs' 40-man roster all winter. Chicago held on to Leiter into January, but ultimately chose to designate him for assignment in order to open a roster spot for Eric Hosmer, who got skadooshed out of here in June. That's one of the most overrated players, Eric Hosmer. And I would mention this. We mentioned the Royals in this video. Him running, stealing that run in the ninth inning in Game 5 against the Mets in the World Series is one of the most overrated plays. The only reason that throw was not a good throw from Lucas Giolito because he wasn't expecting it. That World Series game could have ended on that ball at home plate. That was going to be the final out in that game. And that would have been a boneheaded play by Hosmer. Hosmer gets a pat on the back. Oh, you did a great job, Eric. Eric, if you look at his numbers on Baseball Reference, he's got one of the lowest wins above replacement as an everyday first baseman. You would figure it would be much better, and it's not. Anyway, so it seems that Mark Leiter has put himself on the map in terms of as a reliever to get traded. Now, the one thing we know about relievers is they're up and down, and a guy like Leiter can make a real career, even at his age of being 32 years old, 33. He could spend the next 5 years as a reliever for different teams just based off of this good performance that he's had with the Cubs the last year and a half, or last year. He's probably going to get moved. He's a guy that's not going to cost, they didn't invest a lot of stuff in him. They didn't invest a lot of money in him. Just a minimum major league contract. And he's been in the minor leagues. He's been hurt. So he is a very interesting investment for a team, quite frankly. I think some team would be very, very interested in having him as a middle guy that comes in the 5th, 6th, 7th inning for a contending team. Very interesting. That's how baseball is so great. As guys can come out of nowhere, especially pitchers. Pitchers can come out of nowhere, and finally it works. R.A. Dickey was like that when he was with the Mets. He was a guy that, he was a middling regular pitcher, and then he learned the knuckleball. And in those 3 years with the Mets were they're legendary here. If you're a Met fan, you know how legendary R.A. Dickey is. And the Mets flipped him, and they spent no money on him. He won the Cy Young Award. After that, he got a big contract with the Blue Jays. The Mets flipped him. They got Noah Syndergaard, and they got Travis d'Arnaud, and basically that helped them get to the World Series in 2015. So that's what's so great about baseball. Mark Leiter is an example of that. A guy that he's got a quite the sort of family tree, and he's sort of like the least of the apples on that tree, and he's turned his career into something special, and that's what's so great about baseball. It's very different than the other sports, and pitchers in particular. They always seem to have more than one life sometimes. Maybe they learn how to pitch, or they pitch differently, or maybe they, in their younger days they threw harder, and there's so many great examples of that in Major League Baseball, and that's what's so great about it. So let me know what you think about this video, and of course, please subscribe to the Baseball Hut 2, and I'll see you later.